Hey, black women. I wanted to, as an extension of our conversation about Miss Ebony K. Williams, I wanted to read a little bit from her book so that you guys can actually get a little background to why it's such a problem with her being so outspoken and loving her blackness for a few people. Not everybody, just a few people. So the first thing I want to do is I want to start with the dedication of this book, and then I want to read the back cover. So, and I wanted to give a shout out to all my Louisiana women because I didn't know her people were from there as well. But she says, I dedicate this book to Carrie James Williams Sr. and Gloria J. Williams. My grandfather and mother were the first two people to show me the power of what happens when you bet on black. I also dedicated this book to the black people in America. We always bet on ourselves, and we always will. So that's her dedication, right? And then on the back of the book, she has this to us, right? The reader, which is something that commonly a lot of authors do not do. I don't know why, they just don't. So she says to us, let me turn up the mic a little bit. So she says to us, the good news about being black today is that we can place our experience, history, and understanding of the world front and center. We can let others contend with their discomfort or let me start again. The good news about being black today is that we can place our experience, history, and understanding of the world front and center. We can let others contend with their comfort or discomfort with our choices as we refuse to succumb to projections of inferiority. These projections have nothing to do with who we are. Let's blow up foolish, racist lies and tell the truth. Blackness is and always has been deserving of a first-class, mainstream, fully liberated experience. Let's spread the good news about being black in America with unfettered celebration of self. And you see where she highlighted parts of what she had to say for the exaggeration of her appreciation and love of being black. So I point out these few things before I continue on to read a couple of pages of her book to just say that she's a black woman that I guess a lot of us are not comfortable with in mainstream because she's comfortable in her own skin, and she is not at all trying to put on a mask or code switch for others to be comfortable with her blackness. And honestly, being the same type of woman where my motto about myself is, I'm coming to you raw and uncut. You're either going to like me or you're not. I'm not going to apologize or change myself, code switch or whatever to become more appealing to you or to comply with your opinion of me. I don't feel that I have to. And I don't feel that you have a right to require that of me because I'm different from you or that I'm just black. I don't accept that. And I don't apologize for being black. I celebrate it. And I understand where she's coming from. So on the inside of the book, she has this quote by Ossie Davis. Now, I don't know if many of you know who Ossie Davis was. To recognize him from film, he was the old homeless man in Do the Right Thing. And he was also the activist, black activist, I should say, and husband to the great Ruby Dee. So if you didn't know him or his wife, you might want to look both of them up because these are black people who were pioneers in sojourning into America and going forth in trying to get America to portray the multidimensional facets and wonders of black life, both the struggle and the joy. And the joy is what the majority of us are known for because it allows us to, sorry about that, create different trends and personas that people all over the world copy. So it's important to celebrate the essence of exactly who we are that everyone else in the world imitates. As she begins her first chapter, she says, I am in a deep love affair with my blackness. I carry my blackness with me everywhere I go, boldly, proudly, audaciously, unapologetically. Whether I'm on The Real Housewives of New York, on The View, or on my podcast, Holding Court, I'm blackety black, pro black, perennially centering blackness. Whatever you want to call it, I can talk about blackness through any angle or lens, whether as a court appointed legal advisor or on the couch with my girls in some chic Walker wear sweats talking shit. I can talk about being black all day, every day, however way. I carry my blackness with me into every room I enter, whether serving as a public defender, private defense lawyer, television journalist, executive producer, even host or reality TV show cast member. My mode of blackness has been informed by Southern sensibilities, as are mine, academic achievement, and the often tense glare of media. My blackness has nurtured my spirit, and I wrote Bet on Black to feed yours as well. We're long been aware that blackness has been perceived by some as a threat, as an unacceptable breach of an American social contract that, for centuries, has proclaimed brown skin to be an inferior maker of identity. As seen with slavery and Jim Crow laws, this dehumanizing contract proclaims that our heritage should be downplayed and subcategorized permanently, positioned as an afterthought in the collective consciousness. Some might argue that we've moved past these notions of inferiority and become an egalitarian society. But as black people, we know that that's ridiculously naive and dishonest. We know that a racist social contract still exists in the minds of many and continues to shape our societies and institutions. Regardless of these realities, I wrote this book to unite us so we can collectively refuse to have our futures dictated by anti black nonsense. Since the early 17th century, when Africans were first brought to American colonial shores, ideas of blackness have been associated with a subordinate, undesirable experience codified in law for centuries. This is a lie maintained by white power structure invested in maintaining supremacy at all costs. We now know how utterly arbitrary and mind numbing this bottom tier human assignment always was. There have been countless books celebrating the traditional American social order, which requires the dominance of whiteness, heterosexuality, Christianity, and maleness. Whiteness is inherently inflated in this rather tired mix, and if we start to do the work of telling the truth about ourselves as black people, then we can build an environment for ourselves where we can truly live and thrive. We don't need to depend on anyone else to forgive us or give us freedom. We never have. We can ensure our full liberation by starting with the basic truth that everything we've been taught, told, and force fed about white positioning in this nation and beyond is completely arbitrary. Yes, it's made up. And once certain folks have stopped clutching their pearls at this assertion, we can go about the great work of figuring out what this means for blackness. Whiteness has been inflated, placed high on a pedestal, and positioned as superior, which means that we've been told all of our lives about the positioning of blackness as inferior and subordinate is just as arbitrary. That's why, as we cellularly move through life and handle our day to day, we should no longer buy into insubordinate positions based on our skin color. It's a very American notion to say that black people have a place in every space they occupy, and that this space is always secondary to that of whiteness. We need to be extremely hostile to that assignment. This subordinate ranking is a false and made up is as false and made up as the tooth fairy. And we have to start treating it as such for the sake of our individual freedoms and collective well-beings. The good news about being black today is that we can place our history, self-awareness and understanding of who we are in this world front and center. We can let others contend with their comfort or discomfort of our choices as we refuse to succumb to projections of inferiority or second class citizenship. These projections have nothing to do with who we are. Let's blow up the bullshit. Let's stop placating others or being silently complicit with racist lies and tell the truth. Blackness is and always has been deserving of a first class mainstream, fully liberated experience. Let's spread the good news about being black in America with a fresh, unfeathered celebration of self. For years, the prevailing narrative was that blackness was something to manage, downplay, quiet, suppress, distract from, even erase. And we all know that to be true. Isn't that what DeSantis is all about today with his anti-wokeness? With Bet on Black, I'm flipping that paradigm on its head by maintaining that blackness is a treasure to lead with. Blackness deserves to be centered. Black folks totally need to bring their blackness with them in every space they enter and occupy. Funny, she's saying the same thing Meg Thee Stallion said when I was watching the interview that Megan gave shortly after her mom passed away, and she was very fragile, and she was going through this new sense of discovery and kind of like an epiphany, so to speak, for her own enlightenment, right? Of who she was as a person and how her blackness played into a lot of the things that were happening to her that year that she lost her mom and that she no longer also had her grandmother. So here's a black woman that, like what Ebony is speaking to, she no longer has those major matriarchs in her family that most of us black women take for granted and that we could always go to and get some advice from or just call them up for a little comfort when we need to be soothed because the world hasn't treated us so nicely, right? So it's very interesting that she would say the same thing that another black woman who had to stand against unsurmountable odds and stand in her blackness and her truth and proclaim to the world, I am telling the truth. I am a black woman who needs to be recognized and appreciated and respected and protected in this hostile world that does nothing but try to whip me every day into non-existence. I love Ebony and I love Megan. Despite the racist fearmongers, a push to create space for blackness isn't about mass white displacement. It's about allowing black bodies and brains to occupy spaces with confidence, with an informed, well thought out process through which we readily wield power. It's about recognizing we have every right to access resources, professional opportunities, wealth, and the full emotional spectrum of the human condition in the same way our white counterparts have done for eons. I wrote this book because history shows it's common for black folks to contend with manifestations of white insecurity that would have us become caricatures of who we really are or be removed from the playing field altogether. I want us to celebrate the expansiveness of our experiences, to honor this precious thing, popularly called, known as black excellence, to abjectly refuse subordinate positioning in everything that we do and in whatever way we define blackness. Bet on Black is ultimately about reframing and reimaging our possibilities as a people. When we open and alter our own states of mind as they relate to our radical racial identity, we embrace processes that will create a different reality for what it is to be black in America. I'm going to stop there, but I'm going to tell you I have read this book before she became the newest sensation on the block because of her desire to see black people stand up and move to the plate, to be bigger than what society tells us is acceptable for us around them. She speaks about a time where black people, and you guys all know it very well, where we were told you got to be 5 times or 3 times whatever your people told you better than everybody else because you're black. That's the type of stuff Ebony is talking about. That's the type of commitment and thrive and personal resilience that she's talking about. She wants to see in black people. She wants to see us do those things that W.E.B. Du Bois spoke about in his book when he spoke about the talented tenth and um, the crisis of black folks in the souls of black folks. He spoke about these things 100 years before Ebony was talking about it. And when Ebony says things like, I wouldn't date a bus driver, but I'd date the bus depot owner, right? Even though she didn't say depot. What she's speaking to is a sense of people not settling for what others accept or expect them to take and go no higher. She's talking about shattering the whole low expectations for us. She wants us to understand that the sky's the limit, literally, and that you should never accept low performance as your greatest. And she's not the first one to say these things. Earlier, I responded to a comment about this whole situation and the video I did the other day, based off of an email I received, as well as a bunch of comments for some of my subscribers that made me really go there the other day. And I thought about people that inspired me as I grew up and gave me the ability to hold my head up and remember that I counted as well. And I was someone when I went to college and I was one of the few black people, or I began employment and I was the only black person in the room. And when I bought first things or I didn't know how to do something, I remembered songs that I heard that played in my house all the time and books that sat in my grandmother's library about black women who were the first sojourners outside of Sojourner Truth to do whatever it was they did. Like, I knew about black women pioneers in politics, black women pioneers in medicine, law, schools, creating schools, becoming educators, becoming construction workers, engineers, scientists, biologists. I knew all these things, as well as the black males. I knew about how people like Garrett Morgan created the things that we still use today that we couldn't live without, like the traffic light and the switch relay on the trains we ride every day, and the gas mask that we use to save our lives when we can no longer breathe the air around us. I learned all this stuff. And I had people like James Brown blasting in my ear, say it loud. You know, I'm black and I'm proud. And I had videotapes of watching James Brown be a solo performer with the consciousness of Ebony K. Williams, standing from in front of an entire stadium full of outraged, ready to tear the damn city down black people after the assassination of Martin Luther King. I remember these things. I remember sitting down as a little girl and having my grandmother explain to me the significance of the journey of black people from what she suffered and endured in Louisiana and what she came to New York City and found. And the things that happened to her mother and her mother before her and the one before that one. And these are the things that Ebony is talking about when she says, no, I may not date the bus driver, but I'll date the bus owner. She wants you to stop lowering your standards and giving up on yourself, selling yourself short, and so do I. I live in a luxury apartment complex. I'm in the backyard now with a multiplicity of people from all over the world. And when I look at the black people that live here, whether they are from any continent in this world, they're always doing the bare minimum or just enough to get by. We have Asian people here, and if you guys didn't know it, at this point in America, Asian people, in particular Indian people, are the highest paid people in America. They live here with me. And they always are walking around showing their opulence. They show it. They show that I come from something. I have something. And there's nothing stopping black people from doing the same thing. Nothing at all. Besides your desire and your will to do it. I think that instead of us looking at this moment right now as a thing we could rip apart and try to just do the same old thing we always do, which is to scavenge and rip apart the truth in something, right? We need to take this opportunity to reflect on who we are and how great we can become within our individual lives. Put the feelings to the side, because everybody in the world knows that to trigger black people, you just got to tap into their emotions. Let's start moving away from that and going back to that individual excellence she's talking about in pushing yourself to be whoever it is in this world you're supposed to be. And don't stop until you get there. I agree with her. I agree with her wholeheartedly. Like, I got excited reading her book. I got excited watching her on the Breakfast Club stand her ground and not backpedal like many of you said she was. She wasn't backpedaling. She has to be cooperative. She has to be amicable when she's having conversations because of her job, her public profile, and her media life, right? She can't be insanely combative. But she was very honest in the fact that she's not going to say she has to give in to public opinion and public emotional outrage because they feel like she's dissing a black guy. Nobody even said the bus driver was black. She just said a bus driver. It could have been anybody. But this is your subconscious coming through. And the fact that you know you're not living up to your potential is why you have such an attack for the truth. And all I can say is, I'm going to go back to Ebony for a minute to end this video. Blackness is, and always has been, deserving of a first-class, mainstream, fully liberated experience. Let's spread the good news about being black in America with an unfettered celebration of self. Celebration of self. Good news about being black in America. That's what she's talking about. She's not talking about, oh, I'm just hating on this guy because he don't make enough money. She's talking about rise up. She's talking about all the stuff James Baldwin spoke about, Lorraine Lansbury, all of the greats that spoke about black people tapping into their excellence and becoming who they were supposed to be. Richard Wright, Zora Neale. These are the people that she's talking about. Langston Hughes, and so on and so on. People who demanded you reach inside and pull out that gold. Have a great day, y'all. Love yourself and love your blackness. March through this world and scream to the world. I'm going to acculturate into everything I do and bring myself into the room. I'm not assimilating anymore.